How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question
ridiculous.
the way I asked it.
Chairman Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people. All right.
My time. The answer to my question, how many of Epstein's co-conspirators has she indicted, is 0.
How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin.
The Attorney General of the United States was asked on live television about documents connected to one of the most prolific sex traffickers in modern history. Her response was to talk about the stock market. That alone would have been enough to make the clip travel. But what happened next? What a single photograph revealed about what was sitting inside her folder turned a congressional hearing into something that looked a lot more like a cover-up caught on camera. Which country are you watching this from right now? Drop it in the comments. Because this story hit every continent within 12 hours, and it is still spreading. The hearing lasted nearly 5 hours. Pam Bondi, Trump's handpicked attorney general, sat before the House Judiciary Committee under oath, facing questions about the Department of Justice's handling of the Epstein files. The public had been waiting months for these files. Survivors had been waiting years. And the DOJ under Bondi's leadership had been releasing them slowly, heavily redacted, with names blacked out that did not belong to victims. That distinction matters. The names being hidden were not survivors. They were not minors. They were not people who needed protection. They were associates, visitors, guests, people whose presence in those documents raised questions that someone at the highest level of law enforcement had decided the public was not allowed to ask. This is narrative analysis, grounded in congressional hearing footage, publicly photographed documents, and widely reported exchanges that are now part of the public record. Bondi opened the hearing the way most officials open hearings, with a prepared statement designed to sound cooperative while revealing nothing. She expressed sympathy for survivors. She referenced the volume of documents. She described the review process as thorough, transparent, and ongoing. Then the questions began, and the prepared statement stopped being enough.
Please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand. Attorney General Bondi, you apologized to the survivors in your opening statement for what they went through at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. Will you turn to them now? Attorney General Bondi,
no, can I finish my answer?
No, I'm going to reclaim my time because I asked you a specific...
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady has reclaimed her time.
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal asked the survivors in the room, the actual human beings who had been abused, to stand. Then she asked them to raise their hands if the Department of Justice had refused to meet with them. Every single survivor raised their hand. Everyone. Jayapal turned to Bondi. She asked her, on camera, on the record, to turn around, face the survivors standing behind her, and apologize. Not for what Epstein did, for what her department had done to them since. Bondi refused. She called it theatrics. She tried to redirect to her opening statement. She said, and this is on the congressional record, I am not going to get in the gutter. The gutter, that is what the Attorney General called turning around and looking at survivors of child sex trafficking who her own department had refused to meet with. But here is where the hearing turned from contentious to something far more serious. A photographer positioned in the hearing room, as photographers always are during congressional proceedings, captured a single image, an image of Bondi's open folder, and inside that folder was a document with a title visible enough to read. The title read, a congresswoman's name, followed by the words, search history.
So a photographer got a shot of her folder. She opened the folder. They got a shot, and you can see a page that says, Jayapal Pramila search history. That refers to Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, a Democrat. The photo appears to show a list of everything Jayapal searched for in the Trump Epstein files. They tracked her search history in the private room at the DOJ, where congresspeople are legally permitted to look at the less redacted files. They tracked those congresspeople without their knowledge.
Jimmy Kimmel held up that photograph on his show, and he explained calmly, clearly, with the precision of someone who understood exactly what he was looking at, what it meant. It meant that when members of Congress visited the DOJ's secure reading room, the room where they are legally permitted to review the less redacted Epstein files, the Department of Justice was tracking what they searched for without telling them, without their consent, and then printing the results and handing them to the Attorney General so she could use that information during the hearing against the very people conducting oversight of her department, the executive branch spying on the legislative branch, using a sex trafficking investigation as the mechanism. Kimmel paused after explaining it. He let the audience absorb what they just heard. Then he said, "And they're so dumb, they printed it out, put a title on top, and brought it to a televised hearing."
And then they're so dumb, they printed it out and put a title on the top.
The audience erupted, but it wasn't comedy laughter. It was the laughter of disbelief. The sound people make when something is so brazen, so incompetent, so fundamentally wrong that the brain processes it as absurdity before it processes it as danger. If you are watching this and you want to see the patterns that most coverage buries under noise, subscribe and hit that like button, because what comes next in this hearing is the part almost nobody covered. Kimmel connected the final piece. He said, "Pam Bondi has spent more time investigating the people who are reading the Epstein files than investigating the people who are in them." That single sentence compressed the entire 5 for hearing into its actual meaning. The DOJ wasn't protecting survivors. It wasn't pursuing justice. It was protecting names. Specific names powerful enough that the Attorney General of the United States was willing to spy on Congress to keep them hidden. And when Republican Congressman Thomas Massie, the man who co-sponsored the bill to release the files, the man who endorsed Trump 3 times, pressed Bondi on the redactions, she accused him of having Trump derangement syndrome. A Republican who endorsed Trump 3 times, diagnosed with Trump derangement syndrome by Trump's own Attorney General because he asked why names were being hidden. Kimmel's reaction was the reaction of a man who had run out of ways to be surprised. He said, "An ultra-conservative congressman from Kentucky who endorsed Trump 3 times has Trump derangement syndrome. But Trump himself, the man whose name appears in the Epstein files thousands of times, solid as a rock, everyone else is deranged." The audience didn't laugh at that one. They went quiet because the joke had stopped being a joke somewhere around the 3rd hour of that hearing. 5 hours. That is how long the hearing lasted. 5 hours of deflection. 5 hours of stock market numbers where survivor testimony should have been. 5 hours of an attorney general treating congressional oversight like a personal attack and treating a photographed document like it didn't exist. Kimmel closed his segment with one line. He said, "If they have nothing to hide, why are they hiding names?" He didn't answer it. He didn't need to. The photograph answered it. The survivors' raised hands answered it. The tracked search histories answered it. The stock market deflection answered it. And the 5 hours of refusing to turn around and look at the people standing behind her answered it loudest of all. Some questions don't need to be answered. They just need to be asked, clearly enough that the silence afterward tells you everything. Subscribe to the narrative brief and turn on notifications. The patterns don't disappear. We make sure they stay visible.